And we're back for another Creators Collective podcast. We are having a lot of fun here this week, as we are every week. So this week we're going to be talking about a couple different things, particularly redwoods. We had a question submitted that was kind of an interesting one that is a pet peeve of mine personally. Also, new things this week. We now have a website. It is hosted through Wood by Right, but you can find it by the Creators Collective podcast. If you know of who owns creatorscollective.com, we would love to talk to them. But for right now, it's Creators Collective Podcast. If you want to come see our backlog of all of the past shows, as this is episode 66, there are quite a few of them you can go back and listen to if you'd like to do that type of thing.
66. Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there who like to actually go back and listen to all the podcasts. And
I usually do that when I find a podcast that I like. I usually go back and listen through the very first one. But they, a lot of them, you know, they kind of develop over time.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if you ever gone and listened to like Wood Talk, which they're on like what episode 500 and something.
That's crazy.
Their first ones were just they sound like our first ones.
Yeah. Yeah, 16. Let's see, 66 divided by 4, 16.5 months. So what? Almost coming up on a year and a half. Almost. That's crazy.
Yeah. As we started in August or September of 2016.
How many have you been on for, Will? You know?
He joined us in 52.
Oh,
52.
Wow.
Okay.
So 14 episodes.
14 episodes. I was going to say 12, but
it doesn't seem like that many.
I'm not that memorable.
Yeah, speaking of memorable, man, I watched the Grizzly Challenge. I finally carved out time messages, and you absolutely killed it.
Thanks, man.
Is beautiful.
Thanks, man. Yeah, and I've officially won the Grizzly Challenge on Monday. They announced it. So.
Nice.
What did you win?
A pretty awesome shirt of a dude knocking out a grizzly bear.
I like how the other two got a shirt of a grizzly bear knocking out the dude.
Yeah,
like that's almost. I'm not gonna lie, that's almost a better shirt.
Oh, I know. I saw the loser shirt. I was like, I want one, and then my people were like, "Oh no, you get the other shirt," and I was like, "Oh man."
Nice.
Yeah, it was that was just really cool how you worked all the wood together, and it looked natural. It didn't look I feel like usually I don't like any more than 3 different you know, elements
colors
in
and
a piece. I don't want more than 3 colors at the most, you know, usually 1 or 2, maybe an accent, but you guys had to work with a lot of different materials on that, and you made them flow together really nicely.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I think we're talking about. Sorry, go ahead, James.
No, I was just going to ask Zach, what's on the bench?
Sculpture. I actually finally got a picture kind of it mocked up on my Instagram the other day, and I'm kind of at a standstill right now. I'm waiting for. I finally found a copper sphere that's going to go in the center of it. If you pull up a picture of it, you can see it's going to go right in between the arcs that I cut out, and took me a really long time to find one. It's a 10-inch diameter, and yeah, it's going to take a while to get there. I was really hoping to have it done before this Workbench Con thing in Atlanta, which I think is the 22nd. But yeah, I don't know, because I don't think that sphere is going to show up until Monday. So, but yeah, that's
I'm really looking forward to seeing the video on that.
What's that?
I'm really looking forward to seeing the video on that.
Yeah, I've actually, for the first time, I've actually been going through every day or two, uploading all the video and like kind of doing a rough pre-edit on everything, just trimming the clips down, putting them in order, and kind of, you know, just getting it roughed out, which I think is going to make it a lot easier to actually sit down and do the final edit. So
it's nice to work on it when you remember what you actually shot.
Yeah, exactly. Because, you know, I shoot with 2 cameras. I have my little Canon Rebel, and I have a GoPro. So sometimes it's pretty easy to get the clips mixed up. So, you know, actually putting them at least in order every couple of days certainly helps.
Yeah.
So,
sweet.
Yeah, that's what I've been working on. I think I'm going to take a break from commission work after this for a couple of weeks, just because I have so much stuff I want to play around with. I have so many ideas in my head. It's like a
Yeah.
full cup that's just overflowing, and I feel like I need to get some of them out. So probably going to take a break from that. I am going to order, as far as what's new, I'm ordering a 250-pound anvil, which is going to show up in, I think, April, which is a ways
Cool.
out. It's crazy. All of the like new anvils are dried up everywhere. I guess they're having casting problems. It seems like almost everything's cast in like the Czech Republic or somewhere over in that area, and everybody's having issues getting. You can't even get a petting hose right now. They're having issues. So, but I found one I should be able to get in April. And also, I think the last week I was talking about ordering a power hammer. I've decided I'm actually going to go with a hydraulic press instead for now. I can get, I mean, a 25-ton press is actually going to move metal the way I need to move it faster. And really what I need to do is punch and drift stuff. And it's crazy how fast you can do that with a press.
I was going to say, is a press fast enough to, when you take it out of the heat, when you're cherry red or whatever, or orange, I don't know. I don't know how to forge yet. Is it faster than a power hammer for drawing out steel?
Yes, it is insane. I'm going to find a video while we're talking and I will put it in the live. I can't put it in the live chat.
I love seeing the metal just like squish out, almost fluid.
It's insane. Like there's a video of this thing, like a 1 or 2 inch round stock, and like in a, and he puts it vertical and just mashes it like it's nothing. I mean, it's insane. It's crazy. So for what I need to do, like punching and drifting is really the thing. Since I live in Florida.
It's not easy to do one man.
No, you can, but it's not efficient. I mean, if you had another arm, if you had another arm, it would be, I'm not saying that you can't do it, but if you're trying to pound, to punch and drift like a piece of 2-inch stock by yourself, holding the piece in place, holding the chisel in place or the punch, and swinging the hammer, it's like I said, it can be done, but you can't really do it quickly. With a press, I mean, it's you in and out and it's done. It's incredible. So plus, I mean, for my shop space with a hydraulic press, it'll be on casters so I can move it around. And since we're planning on moving in about a year and a half, with a power hammer, you usually need to reinforce the foundation a lot, and they're heavy and they don't move and they're super loud. So I'm sure I'll get one eventually, but it doesn't necessarily make sense to get one in here, especially since in Florida, like half of it's over a sinkhole. So I'd find out within about an hour and a half whether there's a sinkhole.
That would make a good video.
The first 3 hits and the house just sinks into the earth.
Oops. Yeah, that's funny. How about you, James? What are you working on?
Well, I've been turning a stupid bowl.
Still?
Yeah. So, I was originally thinking, I'm used to turning a bowl on a power lathe, and, it's like a quick bowl might be a half an hour of solid turning, a longer bowl, maybe an hour for, an average size, simple bowl. And so I'm thinking, on the spring pole lathe, it may end up being like 3 hours. 3 hours is a good estimate. Well, after about 4 hours, I finally got the mandrel working. And then I spent another 6 hours actually it was about 4 hours just roughing the outside. And then it was another 2 hours of removing all the stock in the middle. And all told, I think I had like 12 hours total into this project to turn a stupid ball. But I have to say, this piece of burl is just phenomenal, and I'm really looking forward to the video because that one should be coming out Saturday. And I was blown away at the color and figure in it. It's phenomenal. So yeah, that was my week.
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah. What about you, Will? You got something similar?
Yeah, so I turned the other half of that burl on my powered lathe, which took me, the end of a day in my shop. So in contrast to James's 12 hours on his spring pole lathe, I think I was on mine for like maybe an hour. And I was really surprised that cherry burl, I don't know if it's because it was so green or if there was more sap in it than I'm used to, but it was like really gunking up my turning gouges.
Oh yeah. No,
Yeah.
it was just like it was sticky almost. I felt like it was
Yes.
almost pine resinous.
Yeah, very much so. So I did a lot of sharpening,
Yeah.
where if you're proficient at turning, as soon as your gouge gets dull, because you know what a sharp chisel feels like, a sharp gouge feels like. So I was running back and forth to my grinder and my wet grinder. I put a new edge on the gouge with my grinder and then do touch-ups with my wet grinder until I pretty much ruined the edge because I was doing it freehand, and then I had to put a new edge back on it with the slow speed grinder. Anyway, so I worked on that, and now I'm just working on the edit for the video, so we can release our videos together. I had something that was really pretty hard last week. A friend of mine, their infant passed away due to just a lot of just complications, heart defects, and then trying to get her heart to work better. And they had to pump her full of meds to keep her, basically just to keep her alive, which then really took a toll on her kidneys. And they got to the point where they didn't know if they were helping or hurting more. And anyway, so he asked me if I could help him source some wood for his father-in-law to carve an urn out of. So we went to my hardwood dealer and we picked out some really pretty 12-quarter cherry, and I milled it down and got it flat. So you had two pieces that were perfectly jointed to mate. So his father-in-law could work on that. And anyway, it was just really hard, especially being a parent. Yeah, it was tough. But I've also been talking to Epically a Justin. I don't know if you guys know him on Instagram, but he is also a grizzly influencer, social media influencer, just like I am, but he's on the Instagram side. I'm more on the YouTube side, and he makes things out of recycled skateboards. And so I grew up a skate rat. I was really, really into skateboarding. And so he makes just really awesome stuff with recycled skateboards, broken skateboard decks. He glues them up. Like, he makes tables, he makes espresso tampers, he makes pens, he makes just all kinds of cool stuff. So we're talking about maybe doing a collaboration, and we're not sure exactly what yet, but I think I'm going to get him to send me some recycled skateboard decks and make something out of that. So that's what I've been working on.
Sweetness.
Yeah.
Also, I think James just posted the video a little bit higher of that press. It's like 10 seconds long, and you guys need to watch it. It will just blow your mind.
I'll have a link to that in the show notes. So if you want to see that, it's really cool. If you ever want to have your mind blown with things that should not changing shape, that's a good one.
It's you'd think that, I don't know. I saw that for the first time like a few weeks ago, and I'm like, oh my god, I didn't know that was even possible. So for drawing out stock, and I just got like 80 pounds of S7 tool steel a couple weeks ago off Craigslist, and it's all like 2 inches round, and I'm not going to draw that out by hand. So.
Right on.
You're not as hard-headed and stubborn as I am.
I think at one point I was, but after trying to draw that, tool steel out for a few minutes, you realize like there's got to be a better way. And even you probably even know more about this than I do, being as that you're the old school tool guy. I mean, Smiths have had ways of doing things other than just by hand for, hundreds of years at least. I saw a video the other day. There's I think it was like a river or a waterfall or something, and they have this. It's like an 80-ton hammer that's like connected to some water wheel or something, and it just.
Yeah.
I mean, this thing. I don't think I've ever seen a bigger piece of gear. I mean, it's imagine like a spindle the size of a redwood twisting and just dropping. I think that the hammer is like tens of tons. It's so. I mean, they figured out a long time ago that smashing large stock by hand isn't the best way to do things.
Well, there's also the water. You have a water wheel driven, and then there's the what's his name? The guy in Australia who builds buildings out of nothing.
The primitive technology.
Primitive technology. Yeah, he did one with a water hammer.
Yeah.
It's basically like a seesaw, and as the water fills up one side, it drops and then dumps all the water and fills back up and drops again.
Yeah, I mean, if I had like a neighbor that could hold a sledgehammer, I might, having strikers and stuff.
That's what apprentices are for.
But I'm in Florida. There's nobody hammer. There's nobody of hammer bearing age here. Age is the right word, but yeah.
Strong old people. That's what you need.
Yeah.
Well, there's also the rotary press where you have the wheel on top. You can spin.
Oh yeah, the fly press.
That is the word.
It's crazy. They don't. I mean,
that one's fairly old.
You see that, and you think it's like a vise. Like you just turn this. It's like essentially it's like a book binding press. It looks like, except for you have this giant flywheel up top with a handle on it, and you look at it and you think you just squeeze it and squish it to like knock stuff, but you don't. You like grab it and you spin it around as try and get that momentum going. It's kind of interesting to watch, but yeah, that old tooling is really cool.
Some ingenious things that were just like someone sitting for a few years and thinking about how in the world can I make this happen.
I'm convinced that like generally as a species we were smarter hundreds of years ago. I mean, like maybe not as a collective society, but as an individual, like you had to think about things, back in the day.
Jonathan 24 asks, Zack, have you seen Christ-centered ironworks homemade power hammer?
I think I have. He had a video of it.
Yeah. I think I remember seeing that a while back, but I'll have to look that up and see if I can put a link in there.
Yeah, I think I did see that video. He's got one about a power hammer versus a press, and as much as I'd like to, build my own, I know for a fact that because I don't have the experience of working on them, like I feel like before you can really build something, you should at least have experience using one in its proper form.
Yes.
Like I think me trying to build a power hammer without ever actually using a power hammer, I would probably not build a very good one, and same as anything, I don't have the hands-on experience of building those things.
See, I feel like
it's like hand planes. Like, I wouldn't recommend somebody to buy for their first plane a used hand plane that's in terrible shape. I'm like, you need to use one that works properly before you try and restore one, because otherwise you won't.
See, I actually think the opposite of that. And because I'm a Craigslist junkie, and because the evolution of my shop has been through, before Grizzly, it was with Craigslist, and I would find these old beat up rusty tools. And I would learn more about the tools by taking them apart, cleaning them, seeing the guts of them, putting them back together, and knowing intimately what is going wrong if something's going wrong.
No, I agree completely for like learning about stuff. But I mean, I think it's safe to say that like we all know what a sharp hand plane feels like.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
if you never
want to
used a sharp hand plane, you probably like if it's, people might think that they have it really set up until they use a sharp one, and then they'll go, oh my God.
Yeah. Well, when I first got started, I bought my first hand plane was a used junky. I had no idea it was a pretty poor rusted hand plane. So I restored it, I sharpened it up, and I made wood curls. And I thought, this is awesome. Until one day I ended up actually sharpening it a little bit better and setting it up a little bit better. And it's like, oh, this is what it should feel like. And then a few days later, I sharpened it a little bit more and it had it set up a little bit better. And it's like, oh, this is awesome. And it was like a month and a half of day after day getting it slightly better and getting it slightly better.
Yeah.
It was just this whole experience.
Yeah.
And I when I tell people, should you should you restore one or buy a new one, I ask people, do you want it to work, or do you want to spend a couple months learning about it and experiencing it and feeling it? And most people just want it to work, in which case then, for your first one, go buy one and see what it feels
and
like.
that's what I did, because I understood that, like, well,
Mhm.
I want one that I know, like, that I can reference and be like, okay, this is how it should work. This is how nice it should cut. Now that I know that, now I can buy the old ones and try and get them to cut this well. It gives me a frame of reference, and I think that's really important when you're working with tools or anything, is to have that frame of reference to know what it's capable of and what it should feel like and that sort of thing. So
there are those few weird people like me, who that month and a half to 2 months of experimentation and playing around is fun. In which case then go for it. but it takes a stupid idiot like me to do that.
Should we jump into the question of the week so we can get
absolutely
to
Let's
pet peeves?
Yes. Question: what is our redwoods or redwood? What are cedar? Redwoods, cedars, etc. When I think about redwood, I think about fencing, like a red, orange, brown wood, used for gates or yard fencing, barriers for kids, and things like that. When I think of cedar, I think of aromatic, colorful, good-smelling, brown, orangey, maybe reddish, with light flowers of color throughout.
So before James gets into his pet peeve, I have to. I was just at my Sawyer's, and he was cutting up some cedar. And let me just start by saying there are about like 100 different types of cedar in themselves. There's Eastern red cedar, which is also known as aromatic cedar. There's Western red. There is white cedar, yellow cedar, deodar cedar, blue atlas cedar. There's the true cedars. So Eastern red cedar, the aromatic cedar, is actually not a true cedar. It is in the juniper family, where things like deodar cedar or cedar of Lebanon are true cedars and usually come from Europe. Okay, that being said,
cheap stuff that smells like hamster cage is the white cedar.
No, that's Eastern red cedar.
Okay, I know nothing. Really? I thought it was a white cedar.
The thing that they line like closets with that smell like a hamster's cage.
I think that, like, I think in my mind, despite like the millions of species, I know of, I have in my head, I have two categories of cedar. There's like the delicious smelling, like churchy cedar that is really nice, and I would call that aromatic cedar because it smells nice. I could be wrong. And then there's like the hamster filings, crappy white cedar in my mind, but apparently it's not actually white cedar, like that people use for fencing that doesn't smell good.
I'd have to look at a hamster cage, but
they don't smell like good cedar. It's a different kind of smell.
Okay.
It doesn't smell good. It's not the good smelling cedar.
So they use aromatic cedar, Eastern red cedar, which is in the juniper family, to keep like moths out of like your closet. Like instead of mothballs, you use Eastern red cedar, and it weathers well, so you can put it on exterior projects like fences, things like that. Okay, James, jump in.
Well, first let's back up a little bit. Pines and conifers. Those two terms are very broad, and then you start getting into your firs, and they get mixed and matched, and they have a scientific family designation, but they are very broad and are easily passed on to other things. The same thing happens then with cedars, because we think of cedars as a particular family of tree, but they're not. It's often a confusing broad term because there will be trees in completely different families that are called cedar. and they'll have a scientific name of cedar, but they're not a part of a particular family. And so with aromatic cedar, the most common is the western, but there are a couple other cedars that have that smell that you connect with it, though they're less smelling, or they may be the cheaper scent. And if I remember correctly, the white is one of those, but it is the cheaper one because it doesn't have the color that people want when they want to line a box with cedar. And so that's where you get the hamster cages, because it's made with the cheaper wood. At least that's what I understand. And that's a whole nother ball of wax I haven't really jumped into.
What's the Christmas? I always get pine, spruce, and fir. Like, they're really easy to mix up.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I like to think that I know. I mean, pines have, the long, fingery.
So there's loblolly. So there's, when you talk about southern yellow pine, that is just a collection of pines. That's not a tree. It's really? It can be any one of these. Usually, so being on the East Coast in the Mid-Atlantic, I'm pretty familiar with the pines that I can get in this area, and like I can look at my property and say, okay, that's an eastern white pine, that is a loblolly pine, that is a shortleaf pine, where a fir looks fuzzier.
They have like the little short. They have the short, or maybe that's a spruce. I don't know. I know what pine looks like, but I guess spruce and fir.
Firs have okay, take this with a grain of salt because I'm not a specialist in this.
Trees? I know
a fir has a cone, a pine does not. But then there are some crossover, because conifers have a cone, a fir.
Right, but pine trees do have cones.
Cones.
Then they're a fir if they have a cone.
No, I disagree completely.
Then I'm probably wrong.
And that was what I was told. Pine cones are a real thing. I know that.
That's what I was told from my the guy I bought Christmas trees from.
So just knowing on my property and being a friend with a forestry guy, a timber broker that comes over, he has told me that most of the things on my property are shortleaf pines, and they have pine cones because I've filled bowls full of pine cones for like Christmas.
So which ones are Christmas trees? Are those spruces?
Oh, you can get
you can get anything. When you go to the Christmas tree farm, there's like a
traditional like Christmas tree. Because I remember a story of like sometime in the 1900s.
Spruce is the most common.
I think the military sent out a bunch of people to cut down Christmas trees, and they cut down the wrong species. I don't remember the story. But.
Yeah, spruce is by far the most common Christmas tree. But like personally, I like a white pine, long needle, or concolor.
Yeah, I like the concolor firs.
I wonder how many people are like going to be driving down the road listening to this, just absolutely frustrated at the amount of misinformation.
Yeah,
we're probably way off.
Maybe we should get back to the actual question.
Palm trees are probably like the official traditional Christmas tree or something.
And I still disagree with James about aromatic cedar, and I have always associated not my hardwood because it's a softwood, but my wood dealer, when they sell aromatic cedar, it's eastern red cedar, where western red cedar is used for more outdoor projects.
You know what? I'm sure somebody's going to write us an email and set us all straight, because I have a feeling we're all a little bit wrong, but I think I'm right.
Did I say western?
I think white cedar is the stinky hamster stuff that they use for fence posts.
Sorry.
Okay, all right, then we're in agreement.
Yeah, I don't know. Somebody send us an email and set us straight.
But let's actually get back to the question of redwood and cedar.
Okay,
this is from Carbonite Gamorrean. Gamorrean. He's
the one that we just read.
Fairly common. Yeah. But we actually had addressed his question about what is redwood and what is cedar and what are redwoods and cedar. And to be specific, a redwoods are a subfamily of conifers. And so there are several different woods that are considered a redwood, and sequoias are in that list. And that are technically redwoods. But then there are also redwoods. In other words, woods that have red in them. And that's where things really get confusing, is because people like to put that into like you might call, I've heard people talking about Paduke as a redwood. I'm like, no, Paduke is not a redwood. Paduke is a redwood, but it's not a redwood. But yeah, there's a specific subfamily of conifers that are redwoods.
Yeah.
If you think of like the western, the Californian, or the large sequoias, those are redwoods. And I think that there is a cedar that is a redwood, but cedars aren't redwoods, from what I've been told.
It does get confusing, because so when I think of redwood, I think of the redwood forests, like the big ginormous trees.
Redwood National Park.
Yeah. And when I think of, and I'm from the right coast, so I don't, often get to work with redwood. But when I think of cedar, like we use a lot of cedar for outdoor projects here. And there's the true cedars, and then there's just what we call cedars. So that gets even more confusing. So Eastern red cedar isn't actually a cedar, it's a juniper. But it's not a redwood either. But it is a red wood.
Yeah, and if you're on the West Coast, the redwoods are actually fairly common. You'll see those for your pine and your 2x4s and construction grade furniture, because they're very common out there. Whereas in like the Midwest, it's mostly Douglas fir. So you'll get
so I'm doing some research here. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm pretty sure that we always had like Douglas firs for Christmas trees.
Yeah. I think Jim Dockrell said that in the live chat. Doug fir. Yeah.
We're way out of season right now.
All right.
Yeah, where's Shannon Rogers when we need him? Because he's the tree guy. We should have brought this one up when he was on here.
Santa Claus on next.
We can let him pontificate for a month or so.
Yeah. Oh, and I will say, don't get a spruce for a Christmas tree, because they have terrible needle retention. Don't ask me how I know.
Cool. Let's let this one lie and go on to the joke of the week.
Yeah.
An interesting tidbit before we move on. Another thing, the spruce goose, if you guys aren't familiar with that, that's an airplane that was built by Howard Hughes out of spruce, and it flew.
Yeah.
So look that up. I've actually
gone to see that. It's in Oregon.
Yep.
It's like 120 miles inland, something like that.
It's funny. I had in one of the comments, because I have that video, the bomb-proof bookshelf or whatever that I built, and somebody's like, if it's bomb-proof, why don't they make airplanes out of spruce or pine or whatever? And I'm like, check this out. Drop the link into the airplane.
That's funny.
It was nice. I felt
all right. So, real quick, back on spruce. Did you know that, Zach, you probably did, that is traditionally what they make guitar tops out of, spruce?
Yeah.
Yep. All right. That was all.
I prefer cedar myself on acoustics, but yeah.
A cedar top?
Yep.
I've never played a cedar top.
I'm trying to remember what the violin. It's a pine in the Alps. I can't remember what it is.
Alpish pine.
No, there's actually the place where what's his name? The famous violin maker.
Stradivarius.
Yeah.
That's
the woods where he got his lumber from. Is now a huge. There's a huge business based on selling those particular trees. These are the same trees that Stradivarius got his lumber from, so you can make yours out of that too.
Oh wow,
interesting.
Yes, but we have a joke of the week. Richard Clark. I was attacked last night when walking home by a man with a power tool. There I was, minding my own business, and bosh!
That one's really bad.
So bad. I love it.
Really, really bad.
That's perfect. You know what we need to do? Like at the end of the year, we need to put all of the worst jokes and have a contest where people can vote on the absolute worst woodworking joke here, and then we can give them something. I don't know why. But
I'm gonna give you guys a bonus joke just because
Ooh.
I mentioned in it. But Jonathan 24. So why did no? Sorry. All right. So why did he use hardwoods? Because the softwood shipment got delayed. That's bad. Okay. And why was the shipment delayed? Because William Walker was the delivery guy. Okay. That one's really, really bad. All right. We're reaching on that one.
Let's move on to what we're watching. Zach, Will, what you got?
Wait, Zach or Will?
yeah.
Will, you're on the top of the list.
Okay.
I thought it was
all right.
Zach, but it's not. It's Will.
This
is a good one.
The Pedula Studio, I think that's how you pronounce it because there's an accent over the A at the end. He just made this white oak desk with kind of that same continuous grain drawer front that kind of the same idea that I used on the bedside tables. But his is really, really well done. And he actually made it like a torsion box out of just construction material. And then put almost like veneer, did a thick veneer white oak top, and the grain is all continuous. There's a waterfall legs on both sides. And the reason I thought it was really, really impressive, not so much, I didn't like the design aesthetic so much, but the reason I thought it was really impressive was there were so many mitered corners and mitered joints in the project, and they somehow magically all just lined up perfectly. And if you've ever made any kind of picture frame or anything like that, you know how any slight bit that you're off in your miter gets amplified in your corners. And just this desk was so tight all around that my mind was just blown.
Power
so yeah,
black magic.
Yeah, I was just like, nope. Like I wouldn't even attempt that because I know that my miters wouldn't be tight enough. And I was like, nope. And it came together really beautifully.
Cool. I'll have to look at that.
Yeah. How about you, James?
I came across, I don't know if I've been on like this boat building kick lately. Maybe I should build a boat. Ooh. But I came across a channel called Acorn to Arabella, where they're following the process of milling the trees down all the way to building the boat. And really, really cool channel. But the reason that I found them is that they were pouring the lead keel. A lot of older boats will have, well, even newer boats, they'll fill the fiberglass bottom with lead. And they were pouring, I think it was like 9 tons of lead, molten lead. It was phenomenal. But the video went absolutely viral, and just a cool channel. But if you ever wanted to look at, what do you do for boat building? How do you actually find these pieces and trees that are shaped right to make the pieces of the boat? It's a cool channel. Definitely take a look at it. Acorn to Arabella.
Cool. I've been wanting to make a canoe for a long time. So maybe we'll do a canoe build off.
I had a friend in Pennsylvania who made a kayak in his basement. And I went down there and looked at it. It's like, how are you going to get this kayak out? He says, I have a plan. So one day he pays for his wife to have a night out. I think it was 2 nights that she was gone. And he opened up pulled back the carpet in the living room, pulled back the subfloor, took out one of the joists, and pulled the kayak up between the joists into the living room and then out the front door. Put it all back before his wife came home. And his wife came home and was like, how'd you get the kayak upstairs?
That's funny.
How big was this kayak?
It was like 12 foot long, made out of a single piece of cedar.
Wow, okay. All right.
It was a good kayak. Very cool.
Zach, what are you working on?
What am I? Wait.
Sorry, what are you watching? What are you watching?
Oh. So checking out the Grizzly Challenge, and meanwhile decided to watch a few more of your videos, which I enjoy. And And don't get the wrong impression. Like I've said before that like the artistic style videos aren't really my thing. But I mean, there's a few people that I think that do it right. And I've said it since the beginning, like you balance it really well. You don't have like the super corny narration about like how you were thinking at the grocery store the other day. And you know what I mean? Like it's not like ridiculously artsy. It's just very well shot and well like cinematic. So so I was checking out your stuff the other day. And I just binged, my wife and I just binged Dark on Netflix, which is the best thing I've seen in a long time. If you guys are familiar with Stranger Things, I would venture to say it is better than Dark. Or I mean, Dark is better than it. The catch is it's in German, but you can put on. I mean, the way it comes up, if you're in the States, it comes up with terribly dubbed vocals. What's the word? What am I looking for here? Why can't I think of the word? Yeah, like really bad voice acting and stuff. And so I just put it back to German and put on the subtitles, and it's super good, very deep. There's like time travel, but it's not corny. It's very, very, very good. So probably the best show I've seen in a long time. So I highly recommend that. Has nothing to do with making, but yeah,
sweetness.
That's
cool
my recommendation.
Well, what is your product for the week then?
My product of the week, I am going to give a shout out to IsoTunes, which I think I have before, but I'm always switching back and forth between quiet things and loud things in my shop, grinding and welding and doing stuff like that. So I can't say how awesome it is. I've always had these like 3M work tunes, which are gigantic. They're like the running headphones from the 80s. But no, the IsoTunes things, like they have magnets, so they'll literally just wrap around your neck when you're not using them and stick together, so you don't have to worry about them falling off. So when I'm in the shop, they're pretty much always on my neck, and I can just pop them in my ears. Like I don't have to look for my headphones or anything. They are they're OSHA approved for noise reduction. So, but I have actually been talking to them, and they're going to do, if anybody's interested in some Bluetooth headphones, if you go to their site and order any of them, you can type in ZHF, and I think that's like $10 off or 10% off or something like that. IsoTunes. I like the cheap ones. They have a few. They have like the basic IsoTunes, and they have the IsoTunes Pro. The basic ones are $60, which are actually my favorite. I like those more than the expensive ones. So anybody looking for Bluetooth headphones?
I was wanting to get some the other day. I had to use some power tools for a project, and I was like, I can't listen to my music. What's up with that?
Yeah, I had to order another pair because I wore mine to the gym, and my wife didn't check my pockets before she threw them in the washer and dryer. So I had to order another pair. But
so I have the cheaper pair, and I got them at a woodworking show just because they were running a show special, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll give them a try. My only thing I don't like about them is the battery life. I'm constantly draining them.
I mean, I can get a day out of them if I remember, not a solid day, but I mean, a day of shop use out of them. If I remember to plug them in at night. The problem is I usually don't remember to plug them in when I'm done, but yeah.
Cool. What you got, Will?
My bandsaw. I feel like I've been using this bandsaw I'm using it more than any tool in my shop, and it's my Grizzly G0513 X2 BF, and it's I got 12-inch resaw capacity, and so I've been using it for turning bowls. James, you and I cut that burl in half using the bandsaw, and
sorry about cutting your cord, man.
Yeah, I know. What's up with that?
What happened?
You have to see the video when it comes out.
Yeah.
Actually, I did that when I bought my first miter saw from DeWalt. I plug it in and didn't realize the cord was like right above the fence. And I literally, the first cut I made with it, right after I plugged it in, I cut the cord in half. Cut its own cord in half.
It's like a rite of passage. Like, framing my house, I bought this new circular saw, Makita circular saw, and I was cutting a piece of plywood, and I set it down, and somehow the guard got like jammed open, and I set it right on the cord, and kapoof, cut the cord in half. But yeah, back to my bandsaw, because Zach's thrown out coupon codes. You can get this bandsaw on Grizzly. You can get 10% off of it if you use the code Walker10. So I got codes too. How about you, James?
I'm gonna go with the old school hand screw clamp. So that thing with the two handles, one either side, the two jaws that move in and out parallel. Even as a power tool user, I found that to be a very, very useful tool because you can, for like holding things with the drill press, or parallel clamping small items, those places where you'd want to use like a squeeze clamp, but you want to have more pressure and you want to have it over a larger area. It's an extremely useful tool, and a lot of fun once you figure out how to use it. But yeah, a good old hand clamp. They're not just for decoration on the wall.
I use them all the time. Actually, cool. I use them to hold small pieces when I'm cutting them on the bandsaw, so I don't cut my fingers off.
That's a good thing. Well, you've listened to another 45 minutes with the Creators Collective, and I want to say thank you for coming along for the ride. I do want to say a huge thank you to our patrons on Patreon. We are still working on reworking that and looking forward to what we want to do. So if any of you have ideas what you want us to do with Patreon, let us know. Also, if you have any questions, comments, snide remarks, or want to correct us on all of our debauchery on pines, conifers, and redwoods, please feel free to email us or leave a comment here on YouTube. We'd love to see that. Any of your questions and comments on here, we'll try and get those online. So that's about it for today. Until next time, have a wonderful day.
See you later.
Adios.